بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, today we'll be starting the last module in the book. Basically, we've taken everything with regards to the letters, the harakat, fatha, dhamma, kasra, shadda, reading the words, one word, two words, full sentences. Now, this is the last part of the book. And the reason that we've got this module is because our normal writing, the way we write day to day, there's a few things which differ as to how the Mus'haf or the Quran is written. So there's a specific type of writing or calligraphy that's used in the Quran. And as we'll come to see, there's just small differences. So it's important to be aware of them, especially when you read through the Quran. Al-Rasm al-Uthmani is called the Uthmanic script. This module, it's not something that you're going to memorize immediately. Rather, you use it as a resource. So every time you read in the Quran, you come over something which is not familiar. For example, the sukoon looks a little bit different. You're not quite sure. Come back to the book, use it as your resource guide, and look over it. And inshallah, as you constantly read and you become a bit more familiar, it will stick bi'idhnillah. So inshallah, we'll start off straight with the module bi'idhnillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So as you can see, the heading of this is Mustalahat Rasm al-Mushaf. So al-Mushaf, some people call it, some people say the Quran. Basically, there's certain letters or signs or harakat which are written a little bit differently, and inshallah we'll get to know them here. So the first is الدرس الأول رأس حاء صغير. رأس حاء صغير. What does this mean? If you can see in red here, when we took our letters, we wrote a ha like this, the ha, like this. So it's saying the head of this ha, رأس means head of this ha, صغيرة. صغيرة means it's small. So if you look closely, this is very similar to a small ha. Very similar to a small ha.
Yes.
Very similar to a small ha. So you'll find this a lot in the Quran. What is this? This is a sukoon. So your sukoon in the Mus'haf is written like this. That's why if you go back to the first page, I have it in my book. It says رأس حاء صغيرة. Example here. يدل على سكون الحرف. This shows that the letter has a sukoon on. ويقرأ كما في درس السكون. So this is just the writing is different. As for the pronunciation, it's exactly the same. So our sukoon, our normal sukoon was more like a round loop, a round circle. Correct, Brother Dawood?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
Just a circle.
in the Mus'haf, you're going to find it like the small part of a ha. So it's a sukoon. So in the Mus'haf, you're going to find it like that. So Brother Dawood, please could you read for us these words, bearing in mind that the one in the red is a sukoon.
Okay. Hablu.
Tanween at the end. Two dhammas. Hablun.
Hablun.
Ahsant.
Then we have ka. Kalkun.
Khal. It has one dot. Your friend has one dot.
Kalfun.
Khalfun. Ahsant.
Kalfun.
Well done.
And we have ta. Tal.
Well done.
Tal'un.
Well done. Tal'un. Ahsant.
Then we have Kablu.
Well done.
Qablu.
Well done.
Qablu. And we have Ta.
One dot.
Na.
Na, أحسنت.
Na. Na, and that's a ha, so nah. Nah.
Well done.
Nahnu. Nahnu.
أحسنت. نحن.
Nahnu. Then we have wa. Waj. Waj. Wajhi. Wajhi.
أحسنت. Well done.
Wajhi.
So if you notice that the reading is exactly the same. It's just in the Mus'haf or in the Quran, you're going to find this like a small ha,
Yes.
and that is your sukun.
Yes.
Is that clear, Brother Dawood? Any questions?
Very clear. Very clear. That's the one that I asked my wife, because when I was waiting, because I obviously went at 11 o'clock, so I had a wait before the Adhan and before the Khutbah. I downloaded this and I was reading Surah Al-Fatiha and becoming familiar with it in the Arabic. So I spent a little time with Surah Al-Fatiha. And I just said, this must be a sukoon. So I just used it as a sukoon. And then when I came home, I verified with my wife that that's what it was.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. So now this second lesson, الدرس الثاني رأس صاد صغيرة. So if you remember when we were writing a صاد, we wrote it like this. Do you remember? Like this.
Yes.
So it's saying the رأس is just the head. So this part here.
صاد صغيرة.
صغيرة. صغيرة means small.
Okay.
So it's saying, so if you look at it closely, it looks like the head of a sad.
Yes.
Just that. And this shows you that the Hamza, if you notice, it's always above the alif here. And we said this in the lesson we took after, we said there's Hamzatul Qata' and Hamzatul Wasl. So this they want to show you that this is Hamzatul Wasl, which basically means that it's not an original Hamza. And when we're reading it, we're going to skip it if it comes second. So for example, here, wa, basically the sad here, they're just trying to tell you that this is Hamzatul Wasl. So just be careful. So here, for example, if we're joining, we'll say wa, and then we'll go straight to the lam. Wal baladu. And this lam has a sukoon on top of it. Wal baladu. And if we weren't reading with the waw, so let's say we were just reading it alone, then we would say al-baladu, and obviously we would read it because it's at the beginning. However, here, wal-baladu, wat-tini. Brother Dawood?
Yes. Wal baladu.
Ahsant.
And then we have well.
So this one you're going to join to the shadda.
Okay.
So
okay.
in the
I see.
in the lesson of lam al-shamsiyya wal-qamariyya, we said that we can have an alif lam. Then after that, if there's a shadda, we join this waw straight to the shadda. So for example, wat-tini.
Wet.
Here
wet
on the previous one, we don't have a sukoon, but after that we don't have a shadda. So we must read the lam, wal baladu. And in the Mus'haf you'll find, I'm sure it's everything is written quite clearly.
Yes. All right, and the third one. We have it there. So, but we have a lam with no haraka. So, do I say while she? No, while sha.
والشا أحسنت.
Well,
you join to the shin. أحسنت.
Well, shaja. Well, shajaru. Well, shajari.
أحسنت. So we won't be pronouncing the lam because the shin has a shadda. So we'll go straight to the shin. والشجر. والشجري.
والشجري.
أحسنت. In our book, the one online, it's a different word. It's والطارق. وَالطَّارِقِ. And then also in our book, the fourth word is a little bit different. Brother Dawood, the fourth word in your book?
The fourth word for me is we have the alif with the little hamza sawatal.
Wasl, ahsant.
Wasl. And then we have a lam with no harakah. And then I have a sod with a shadda.
Ahsant.
The shadda has a fatah.
Ahsant.
So I would say this al-saw, or I say
So your lam is silent. Ahsant.
Yeah, my lam is as-saw. And then I have a saw, I have a ya with the sukoon. Al-soy,
Ahsant.
al-soyfi.
Well done. Ahsant. As-sayfi. And in the book I've got on the screen, at-takathuru. So notice how, because there's no waw before the alif there is first. So we said whenever it comes first, whether it's Hamzatul Qata or Hamzatul Wasl, we read it because it's first. And then we join straight to the ta because there's a shadda. At-takathuru. Ahsant. Brother Dawood, the fifth word in your book?
The fifth word in my book is different too. I have a wa, then with a waw with fatah, and then I have an alif with that symbol on it, and then I have a lam with nothing. So I would say then I go to a ta with a shadda and a fatah. So which would be ta.
Just join, the waw to the ta.
Watariki.
Wattariqi. Ahsant.
Watariki.
Ahsant. In the book we've got online, it's the tartib, the order is a little bit different, but ash-shajari. So in the printed book, in the printed book, ash-shajari was word number 3, and here on the online book it's word number 5. The last one, Brother Dawood?
The last one has again the alif with the hamza sawatal.
Wasl. Wow. W-A-S-L. Wasl.
And then it has a lam with no harakah. And then it has a noon with a shadda with a fatah. So I would say anna.
Well done.
Anasi.
Okay, and they want you to pull the noon a little bit, so they gave you an alif after that.
Annasi.
Annasi. Ahsant. So basically, the first one we took was the sukoon, and the second one we took was a sign what shows Hamzatul Wasl. As for the sukoon, we said it's like the head of a small ha, and as for a sign for Hamzatul Wasl, it's like the head of a small sad. And then we'll come to the next page. Inshallah, we'll probably put this lesson, we'll take this page, and then tomorrow we take the next two, inshallah. So here, if you remember, we took al-alif al-mamduda before, and we said it has a wavy line. Do you remember?
Yes.
Right. In the Mus'haf, when you come later on, you'll find in tajweed in general, when you read in Quran, there's some mad or mudud where you have to pull longer than others. So basically there's different lengths of mad. So for example, ad-dallin, here you pull like 6 harakas. So ad-dallin. there's some mads. This is all advanced stuff in tajweed. You can take it later. But why they mention this is they want to tell you that, or the main point is that mad can be of different lengths depending on the rules you're following. So sometimes when we took it earlier, we were reading just normally. So whenever we were pulling just a little bit extra, if you remember. So amana.
Yes.
Here in the Quran, when you find this mud, this wavy line, they want you to pull it a little bit more. So instead of just pulling it like double, you would pull it a bit more than double. So for example, the first one, it wouldn't be ja'a, it wouldn't be ja, it would be ja'a. The Quran, you pull at least up to 4 haraka, and some of them 6. So when they say haraka, literally, if you go on your fingers like this, 4. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, like that.
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel where a guy is teaching tajweed, and he's using the count on the fingers to pull it. I just looked in on it. I thought it might help pronunciation, but I just looked in. I said I liked it, or I joined it because I want to go back to listen to him later, because he does a very good explanation of how much you pull.
Yes, and once you've got the rules, inshallah, then you'll be able to pick up how much do you pull, when do you pull, is this a compulsory pulling? So sometimes in Taraweeh, you'll find when they're reading faster, some of the mads they don't pull them.
Yeah,
that's a way of reading. So, but basically, for now, our lesson here, summarize it in one sentence. They're basically telling you whenever you see this wavy line in the Mus'haf, in the Quran, pull it a little bit more than you would be pulling it when you're reading normally. So, for example, this one would be ja'a. So, an ayah, for example, you'd say وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ. Pull it at least 4.
Yeah.
So, Brother Dawood, please try and pull them a little bit longer.
All right. So pulling for a different length.
Yes.
So the next one, we have an alif with no haraka and a lam with no haraka, going to a dod with saja. Shada. Dod with shada, and then an alif with the pull.
Yes.
So what I would say here would be sol,
ba, huh?
Oh, dal, and then we have lam, dali.
Da, ahsan, carry on.
Dali. Then we have with no haraka.
Ahsan.
Straight into a noon with a fatha. So dalina.
Ahsan. So they want you to pull it even more. So you would say, example, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So notice how I pull the ba, and then I also stuck on the lam for a little bit because of the shadda. ضالين.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's an art on its own. Inshallah, you get familiar with it. The more you listen, the more lessons you go to. For now, just pull it a lot more than you're pulling what you read normally. That's the rule for now.
I have a question. If you pull a letter for too long, do you change it or change the meaning or something like that?
Sometimes it can change the meaning. So, for example, if there's just an alif with a fatha, that means and then sometimes people pull it, say So basically, as we know, the Quran is the word of Allah, and we're supposed to read it the way it is, and it has its wazn, its measure. Every word is given its right. So, for example, sometimes if you are going to pull, you're going to be adding an extra word or an extra haraka to the Quran that is not there.
Yes.
And in the same way, if you decrease, so like some people in Surah Fatiha, instead of Iyaka, notice how I'm hanging on the ya for a little bit because of the shadda. Iyaka, they say Iyaka, Iyaka. And there's obviously a difference between different ways of reciting. So Maliki is correct and Maliki is also correct. However, there's some places where it's agreed upon that you don't, or there's no qira'ah that increases or decreases. So here somebody would actually be not only changing the meaning of the Quran, but he would be adding or subtracting words. So that's why we don't pull or subtract too much. We don't pull
yeah. I have a friend that when he took Islam, he changed his name to Malik. And then when he learned how to read Arabic and he learned Arabic, he said, no, you call me Malik. He said, the proper way to pronounce my name is Malik, not Malik. So once he was able to learn Arabic, he knew the proper way to pronounce his name. The other thing I hear it is, so in the adhan, you hear them really pulling sometimes. That has no changing or anything like that, right? So.
Yeah, because number one, adhan is a call.
Yeah.
So the purpose of adhan before, or it's still today, is to inform the people that there's salah. Before, they didn't have microphones, they didn't have much, so that's why they would go up on top of the minaret, the manara, so the voice can go as far as it can, and that's why sometimes they pull even further.
Yes.
Just so the voice can reach the furthest point possible. Here, we're mainly talking about rules in tajweed and in the Quran when reading.
Okay. On to the next word. We have a fa with kasra, then a dal with fatha. So we have, that's very straightforward. It's a fida. And then we have the alif with the mamduda. So we say fida, and then we end up with a hamza with a double. So that is a fida. I don't know how to end that.
So hamza and alif is the same pronunciation. So if you had an alif with a fatha, what would you say? Just one fatha, you would say a. And an alif with two fathas, you would say?
I'm not sure.
An. Ahsan. So
right,
here, if you read the whole word, pulling your dal.
Fidan.
Fida'an. So the ayah in the Quran. Ahsan. The ayah, Allah says, فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً حَتَّى تَضَعَ الْحَرْبُ أَوْزَارَهَا. So you notice how you have to pull that fida'an.
Yes. Okay.
Next one.
Okay, next one is a qaf with a dhamma. So it's a ku, then a ra with a dhamma. So kuru, then a waw with the pull.
Yeah. Ahsan.
So kudu. Now we have the hamza with the double underneath.
So
Kudu.
Quru.
Quru'i.
In. Ahsant.
Quru'in.
Quru'in. Ahsant. And the next one?
We have a meme with a fatha. Then we have the alif with the mamduda.
So
Going.
I just want to quickly explain something. If you remember, when we're reading normally, even the previous word, just imagine that mud is not there. We would say in. We wouldn't pull it too much because we know that we have to pull it a little bit because after the ra, we've got a waw and there's a dhamma, so we say in. However, here they put the mud there, so you pull it a little bit more.
And you have it on top of the wow, so it's like the wow is saying to pull, and then that's saying to pull even more.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm just a little mud. Okay, we have this. I'm just a little confused about that hamza in there. Di.
Huh?
Ma'ida. Madi'aun. Madi'atun.
This one here is a hamza sound. Ma'ida.
Ma'idatun.
The ta has two fathas.
Madi'atan.
Tan.
Madi'atan. Madi. So I pull. Madi'atan.
Ma'idatan. Ma'idatan. So then after, basically the Hawariyun, so in English they translate as the disciples, they asked for some food. They wanted a sign. They wanted food from the heavens. So Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, may peace be upon him, he told them to fear Allah. After that he made dua. And Allah mentions this. It's at the end of Surah Ma'idah. He says, قال عيسى بن مريم اللهم ربنا أنزل علينا مائدة من السماء. So he's saying, oh my Rabb, my Lord, send us down this Ma'idah, this banquet from the heavens. Notice how I pulled the Ma'idatan.
Yes.
And then last one.
The last one is the small ha with a fatah. So it's ha. Now in the middle, it goes over to a wow, but in the middle it's got a small symbol, small alif with the sign for al alif al mamduda. So I pull it.
They want you to pull that ha, and they want you to pull it long. That's why if you notice they put you three signs. First is they told you there's a fatha. Then they told you pull it a little bit because there's the long straight one. Then they also put a mud to say pull it even more. So you would say ha.
Ha. And the wow is actually a pulling too, right?
No, the wow got a hamza on the top. So we said hamza.
Ha u ha la.
Well done. You pulled the la. Well done.
Ha la e. Ha la e.
Ahsant. So for example, in the Quran you've got that's ha antum ulai. But there's an ayah, or there's a lot of ayat which have ha ulai. So for example, ha antum ha ulai hajajtum fima lakum. So notice how we pulling the ha. Ha antum ha ulai. We also pulling the la.
Yes.
Generally, if you're just reading like that, you're not going to remember to pull it. When you get used to reading the Mus'haf, and after you've memorized, then you'll remember, inshallah. So that's the lesson of mud, and inshallah we'll just take this one more lesson. Is that okay, Brother Dawood?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Hamza thumma alif. So the next one, we took it originally. Now, so just so you don't get
Hamzatul.
No, it's just a hamza, the hamza on the written alone, and then after that there's an alif written, and just so we don't mix up, I think we need to explain this a little bit.
Okay.
Look for a place to write. It's everything is the same. It's just there's 3 different modules here. So if you remember when we first took this shape here, this mud. You remember
Yes.
this
Yes.
wavy line?
Yes.
So when we first took it, I'm just going to write in this corner here. We're talking about this mud. Let me go red. Right. When we first took it, we were just pulling a little bit. So we're saying pull, and I'll just put there times 2. So whatever haraka you had, we said just double it. Right?
Yes.
That's when we first took it. Now, and that's when it comes to normal reading. Now, in the previous one, we said that this lesson, Ja'a ad-dallin, we said in the Quran, the number 2, is if you see this in the Quran, that means you must pull it a lot. So anywhere from 4 to 6. So 4 to 6 times. Okay? So number 1 is when we're reading out of the Quran. You just pull it a little bit more. Number 2 is that when you're reading in the Quran and you see it, pull it 4 to 6 times. Okay?
It's that's quite long.
Yeah. Number 3. Now, what happens if, or what's the sign? Remember here, number 1, we said that we just pull it a little bit, not too much. So in the Quran, there's some letters where we have to pull them a little bit, but not reaching 4 to 6 times. So there's a way they wrote it. So if you notice here, I'm going to start in the left column, right?
Yes.
The left column, if we want to pull this alif a little bit, the left column is, just imagine, in fact, the left column is not Quranic writing, it's normal writing. So in the previous lessons we took, we would just say, instead of wa'ati, we would say wa'ati, wa'ati. We pull it a little bit, wa'ati. And the next one we would say Adamu. So Adamu. Next one Amanu. Next one Al-Qur'anu. So in the Quran or in the Mus'haf, when they want to tell you that pull it a little bit, they can't write this mad here. Why? Because in the previous lesson they told you if we put a mad, then pull it 4 to 6 times. So now you'll be confused. When do you pull 4 to 6 times and when do you pull just a little bit?
Normal.
Correct? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So instead of this mad here, they wrote a hamza. So now I'm in the right column. The column on the right.
Yes.
They just wrote a hamza. So hamza is just like an alif, same sound. So you would say wa'a, and then they put an alif after that. So wa'a. So you pull it just a little bit. So they don't confuse you by putting the mamduda on the top or the mad on the top. So here you would say, in the Quran, it's written like this on the right, wa'ati. However, pronunciation is exactly the same as how we pronounce the lesson on Alif Mamduda in the first module. So here we would say wa'ati. Notice how we're not pulling it very long, we just a little bit. Here, Adamu, Amanu, Al-Qur'anu. So notice the difference. On the right is the Quranic writing. On the left is the way it's pronounced as well as normal writing. So if you ever drew,
so on the right is Quranic.
Yeah, the right is always pronunciation is the same, but on the right is Quranic.
Okay.
On the right,
on the left is normal.
On the left is normal writing, and that's how it's pronounced. Also, the pronunciation is the same.
But you pull more in the Quran.
In the Quran,
here you wouldn't,
yeah,
because it's giving you that symbol, which just says to say wa'ati.
Well done. Remember, in the Quran, the golden rule in the Quran, when you see that mad sign, that means pull a lot, 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So if you had to cover the left column and just reading from the right, you'll see this in the Quran. So when you're reading wa'ati, you wouldn't be pulling it. Wa'ati, Adamu, Amanu, Al-Qur'anu. And the previous lesson, when you see this long thing here in the Quran, pull وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ, example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Brother Dawood, please could you read it? I mean, we've read all these before.
Yes.
It's just now knowing the rule, what's in the Quran, what's not.
Okay. Wa'ati.
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 Well done.
And that's so just the written on the right is for the way you see it in the Mus'haf. On the left is the way you see it in normal writing. Okay.
Yes.
So then we have Adamu.
Okay,
Adamu.
so the dal we don't want to pull it because there's only one fatha. Adamu.
Okay. Adamu.
Well done.
Adamu. And the same on the other side with the normal. Adamu. Adamu.
Ahsant.
Okay. Then we have Amanu.
Well done.
Amanu. And the same Amanu.
Well done.
Then we have Al-Qur. Al-Quran. Al-Quranu. Al-Quranu.
Well done.
And on the left, same Al-Quranu, but it's just written like you'd see it in a regular letter.
Al-Quran. Ahsant. I think we stop there, inshallah.
Okay.
And tomorrow we can finish off the book, bi'idhnillah.
Inshallah.
So it's straightforward. It's just this last module is just like a resource to go back to when you read in the Quran something you don't see. Just go back to the rule.
Yes.
That's it.
So if I start reading the Quran with these, then I start reading a regular Arabic letter. It's like somebody wrote me a letter in Arabic. It would actually be easier to read the regular letter then, right?
So if you look at it, the main differences we first took sukun.
Yes.
So sukun is not too difficult. I mean, you were able to figure it out without even knowing, mashallah. You said in the Masjid Nabawi, when you had the Quran, you managed to figure out that this should be sukun.
Yes.
So sukun is quite straightforward. Then you've got hamzatul wasl with a small sad, so that only in the Quran. And then you've got your mad. And then inshallah we'll take a few tomorrow. And it's very, very, very close. Some of the other ones, you're not going to see them in normal writing anyway.
I see.
They're just not going to be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallahu khair. Any questions, Brother Dawood? Anything you'd like to mention?
No, alhamdulillah. I asked all questions while we were talking about it and doing it. Yeah. So
Alhamdulillah.
you've cleared up all my questions.
Barakallah. Inshallah, we meet tomorrow. Bi'idhnillah.
Inshallah.
Okay. Jazakallahu khairan. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.